There comes a moment in every person's life when you've done everything you know how to do. You've prayed, planned, worked, sacrificed, and still things aren't moving. That's when the heart cries, Lord, I've done my best, please. Show up and do what only you can do. You see, sometimes God waits until your strength runs out before he steps in. Because as long as you're trying to fix it, he'll stand back and watch. But the moment you step aside, the divine begins to move. You never fail when you surrender control to the one who never loses. There's a power that takes over when you stop trying to be your own savior and allow God to be who he already is, the finisher of what he started in you. There comes a point in life when you've given everything you have. You've studied hard, worked long hours, sacrificed your comfort, and still, it seems like things aren't moving the way you hoped. You've prayed, you've planned, and you've pushed, but it feels like the universe is silent. That's the moment when frustration knocks on your door, whispering, maybe it's not meant to be. But deep inside, something stronger whispers back, you've done your best. Now trust what's beyond your control. You see, there's a fine line between effort and anxiety. Effort is noble, anxiety is destructive. Effort says, I'll do my part faithfully. Anxiety says, if I don't fix this, it will all fall apart. And that's where so many of us get trapped, thinking that if we stop pushing, everything will collapse. But what if the opposite is true? What if the moment you stop striving is the moment things start aligning? Think about a farmer. He can plow the field, plant the seeds, water them faithfully, and remove the weeds. But there comes a moment when he must step back and wait. He cannot force the rain to fall. He cannot command the sun to shine. His job ends where trust begins. The farmer understands a powerful principle, that growth happens in silence, in the unseen, and in the spaces beyond his control. It's the same with you. You've done your part. Now the waiting is not weakness, it's wisdom. There's a difference between giving up and letting go. Giving up says, I quit. Letting go says, I've done my part, now I make room for what's next. When you let go, you open the door for divine orchestration. Things begin to align in ways your human logic could never predict. When you keep trying to control every outcome, you block the natural flow of life. Imagine trying to row a boat against the current because you're afraid of where it might take you if you let it flow. You'll end up exhausted, frustrated, and still stuck in the same place. But the moment you drop the oars and trust the current, it begins to carry you toward the destination you were meant to reach all along. So many people miss their peace because they can't stop striving. They're addicted to control. They measure their value by how much they can do, not realizing that sometimes doing less achieves more. When you stop striving, you shift from performance to presence. You begin to see opportunities that were invisible when you were busy forcing things. You hear wisdom that was drowned out by your own noise. Maybe you've been trying to fix a relationship, and no matter how many times you explain yourself, it still ends in conflict. Maybe you've been chasing success, yet every door seems to close in your face. Maybe you've been waiting for a breakthrough that feels like it will never come. That's not failure, that's your signal to step back and breathe. When you've done your best, the next move is not another plan, it's peace. There's a moment when you have to admit, I don't know what else to do. And that's not a confession of weakness. That's a declaration of faith. Because faith is not built when things make sense, it's built when they don't. When you trust in the unseen, you give permission for the impossible to manifest. Some doors don't open with more knocking, they open when you stop knocking and start believing. Have you ever noticed that when you stop overthinking something, the solution often shows up on its own? It's because clarity doesn't come from chaos. It comes from calm. The mind that is at peace is the mind that receives direction. The heart that releases control becomes the heart that receives miracles. Life is like holding sand in your hand. The tighter you grip it, the more it slips through your fingers. But when you relax your hand, it stays. Control chokes, trust allows. You've been trying to force outcomes, but what if the outcome you're trying to force is smaller than what's already prepared for you? Sometimes you delay your own blessing by refusing to stop striving. Remember this, the seed you planted will grow when it's time. You don't dig it up every day to see if it's growing. You water it, believe, and wait. That's what trust looks like. It's silent confidence. It's saying, I don't see it yet, but I know it's working. You don't need proof when you have peace. You don't need control when you have faith. Every great breakthrough in life begins at the end of human effort. That's when strength runs out and grace begins. That's when the story shifts from, I made it happen, to, I don't even know how it happened, but it did. That's the beauty of letting go. It's the secret behind every miracle you've ever heard of. Someone did their best and then allowed a higher power to finish what they started. So wherever you are, stop fighting battles that aren't yours to fight. Stop trying to fix what only time and wisdom can heal. You've done your part. You've sown the seeds. You've shown up with integrity. Now it's time to release it. The moment you stop striving is the moment peace returns. The moment you let go of the outcome, you free yourself from the burden of results. You are not responsible for the entire story, only for your obedience in the chapter you're in. And when you reach that point, that still quiet moment when you can say, I've done my best, something powerful happens inside you. The noise fades, the worry lifts, and in that stillness, you discover that what you were trying to make happen was already on its way. Because trust is not passive, it's powerful. It's the calm that calls miracles into motion. Stepping aside is not quitting. It's one of the hardest lessons you'll ever learn, but it's the turning point between exhaustion and elevation. So many people think that stepping aside means giving up, like you've lost the fight, like you couldn't handle the pressure. But the truth is, stepping aside is not weakness, it's wisdom. It means you've finally realized that your strength has a limit, but there is a strength beyond yours that never runs out. It means you're no longer trying to force something to happen on your timing, but you're aligning yourself with divine timing. And that's where true power begins. Think about the wind and the sail. A sailor can steer the boat, adjust the ropes, and set the sail, but if the wind doesn't blow, the boat won't move. You can have the best sail, the strongest crew, the most beautiful ship, but without the wind, you're stuck. That's how life works. You can plan, prepare, and push, but there's a wind that only the divine can send. Stepping aside means saying, I've set the sail, now I'll wait for the wind. That's not quitting, that's alignment. You see, when you force what isn't flowing, you end up breaking what could have blossomed. Some people are exhausted not because life is hard, but because they are rowing against the current of destiny. They keep pushing doors that are meant to stay closed for now. They keep chasing things that were never theirs to begin with. And when nothing works, they call it failure. But it's not failure, it's misalignment. You can't open a locked door just because you want it open. It has to be the right key, at the right time, in the right hand. Alignment means trusting timing over tension. It means believing that delays are not denials, they're directions. Sometimes the reason life slows you down because you're heading somewhere your character isn't ready to sustain you yet. You think you're ready for the blessing, but the blessing isn't ready for you. You think you're losing time, but time is preparing you. When you step aside, you make room for growth, maturity, and divine coordination to take place. Imagine someone trying to tune a musical instrument. If the strings are too tight, they'll snap. If they're too loose, they'll sound flat. But when they're in proper alignment, the sound is pure, powerful, and beautiful. Life is like that. When you're in alignment, everything flows smoother. Your decisions make sense, your energy feels lighter, and doors open without you begging. But when you're out of alignment, even simple things become battles. You feel resistance in everything you touch. That's why stepping aside is not quitting, it's tuning your life to the right frequency. Sometimes alignment looks like silence. It looks like waiting when you want to move. It looks like saying no to opportunities that look good but aren't meant for you. It looks like walking away from people who don't align with your future. The hardest thing about alignment is that it often requires separation. Separating from your ego, from your need for control, and from environments that no longer fit your purpose. There's a story playing out in everyone's life where the main character wants something so badly, but the director says, "Wait for your scene." And instead of trusting the script, we rush on stage before it's our turn, only to realize the spotlight wasn't meant for that moment. Stepping aside means trusting the director's vision. It means believing that what's yours won't miss you. It's simply being staged behind the curtain, being perfected for the right moment. You don't lose by stepping aside. You gain clarity. You gain peace. You gain the ability to see what you couldn't see while you were busy trying to make everything work. When you pause, perspective returns. When you stop forcing, flow returns. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history came to people who were willing to wait. Think of the seed buried in the soil. It doesn't panic in the darkness. It doesn't cry out, "I've been forgotten." It just waits, trusting that the soil isn't a grave, it's preparation. And when the time is right, the seed rises stronger than before. Life works the same way. When you align, the right people appear, the right opportunities unfold, and the right doors open. Not because you forced them, but because you were ready for them. The world teaches you to hustle, to grind, to never stop. But there's a sacred balance between hustle and harmony. You can't hear divine direction while you're drowning in noise. Sometimes stepping aside means silence, and silence is where clarity whispers. Maybe you've been trying to fix a situation that keeps falling apart. You've talked, you've cried, you've tried everything, but it's still the same. That's not your cue to fight harder. It's your cue to step aside and let alignment do its work. The moment you stop trying to control outcomes is the moment you allow the right outcome to manifest. You can't force a flower to bloom by pulling on its petals. You water it, you give it light, and you wait. Alignment is also about trust. Trusting that even what you can't see is still working for you. Trusting that the detour is part of the design. Trusting that the no you heard wasn't punishment, it was protection. Sometimes life will reroute you not because you took a wrong turn, but because there's construction ahead that you can't see. The reroute doesn't cancel the destination, it just ensures you arrive safely. When you truly understand this, you stop panicking over closed doors. You stop worrying about who left, what ended, or what didn't happen. You begin to rest in the assurance that every closed door was an act of alignment. You start thanking the divine for the doors that didn't open, because now you realize they weren't leading where you thought they were. Stepping aside is strength in disguise. It's saying, I choose peace over panic, purpose over pressure, alignment over ambition. It's not laziness, it's spiritual intelligence. It's knowing that what's meant for you will not compete with you. It will complete you. When you align, everything starts to connect. The lessons make sense, the pain becomes purpose, and the waiting becomes worth it. There comes a moment in every person's life when you realize that all your effort, your intelligence, and your plans can only take you so far. You've done everything within your reach, but still it feels like something greater needs to intervene. That's the moment when you must step aside, not out of defeat, but out of recognition that human strength has its limits. When you step aside, something supernatural begins to happen. The invisible starts working for you. Doors you couldn't open with your own hands start swinging wide. The situations that once felt impossible begin to shift without you pushing. There is a flow that begins when you release control, a divine power that only activates when you stop trying to be in charge of everything. When you insist on handling everything yourself, you limit what can happen. You keep things small because human effort can only produce human results. But when you step aside, you give permission for the extraordinary to step in. It's like trying to drive a car while someone else is supposed to be steering. As long as both of you are holding the wheel, the vehicle swerves. But the moment you let go and trust the one who knows the road better, the journey becomes smooth. That's what happens when you stop fighting for control and let divine power lead. Think of a person drowning. The more they struggle, the faster they sink. But the moment they stop fighting the water and relax, they begin to float. That's how divine power operates. It doesn't flow into a tense heart. It flows into a surrendered one. You can't experience peace while trying to control everything. You can't experience miracles while relying solely on logic. Miracles begin where logic ends. Power begins where pride stops. The moment you say, "I've done my part, now I trust what's beyond me," that's when the supernatural starts arranging things you could never plan. There are things you've been trying to fix for years that can be changed in seconds once you step aside. It's not because you weren't capable, it's because some doors require a divine fingerprint. Some mountains move only when you stop trying to climb them and start trusting the one who can move them. Sometimes the very struggle you're facing is not a sign of failure, but a sign that you're standing in a place meant for divine intervention. When you finally step aside, the unseen forces that were waiting for your surrender begin to work in your favor. Look at nature. Rivers don't struggle to flow. The wind doesn't force itself to blow. Everything operates in rhythm with something greater. But human beings, we resist the flow. We fight what's meant to carry us. We insist on doing things our own way, and in the process, we delay our own progress. The moment you align with that greater rhythm, things begin to move without strain. The right people show up, opportunities appear, timing becomes perfect. What felt stuck begins to move, not because you did more, but because you finally did less of the wrong thing. You stepped aside. Think about a pilot flying through turbulence. The pilot doesn't panic or fight the storm. They simply adjust their altitude and let the plane's design do what it was made to do. The pilot trusts the process. In the same way, when life gets rough, you have to trust that the storm isn't there to destroy you, but to redirect you. Divine power doesn't always remove the turbulence. Sometimes it gives you the lift to rise above it. But that only happens when you stop trying to be the pilot and start being the passenger who believes the flight will land safely. Every time you step aside, you create room for something greater to take over. When you're overwhelmed, that's not the end. That's the invitation for the higher to take control. Have you noticed how often things finally work out right after you say, "I give up trying to make it work my way"? That's not coincidence. That's divine timing responding to surrender. The things that seemed immovable start shifting the moment you release your grip. Because what you couldn't fix through force, divine power resolves through favor. Maybe you've been trying to make someone understand you, and no matter what you say, they don't. Maybe you've been trying to grow a business, and every time you think you've figured it out, something blocks your path. Maybe you've been fighting a personal storm that no amount of effort seems to calm. That's your signal. That's life saying, step aside, you've done enough. Because sometimes your greatest act of faith is not what you do, it's what you stop doing. Think of how the tide works. The waves rush in and then pull back. Even the ocean knows that to move forward, it must first retreat. In the same way, stepping aside doesn't mean you're backing down. It means you're pulling back just enough to allow divine movement to come in stronger. When you stop trying to force your plans, you make space for divine precision. Divine power doesn't enter where pride reigns. It doesn't perform where control dominates. Power flows in spaces of humility, peace, and surrender. That's why some people never see miracles. They're too busy trying to play the role that only the divine can play. But the moment you let go of your need to figure everything out, things start figuring themselves out. The phone call comes, the opportunity presents itself, the healing begins, the idea appears, the right people arrive. It's not because you suddenly became lucky, it's because you stopped blocking what was trying to reach you all along. When you step aside, you stop competing with divine order and start cooperating with it. You stop trying to make sense of everything and start trusting that everything is making sense in a way you can't yet see. There's a peace that replaces panic, a calm that replaces confusion, a strength that rises when yours runs out. The unseen power that never fails begins to fill every empty place you've been trying to hold together on your own. You begin to realize that your job was never to make everything happen. Your job was to stay faithful and allow divine timing to complete what you started. When you step aside, divine power steps in, not to take over your life, but to elevate it beyond the reach of your own ability. It carries you where effort could never take you. It fights battles you never knew were being fought for you. It arranges things that you couldn't arrange even if you tried. And all it was waiting for was for you to step aside. You never truly fail when you learn how to let go and let a higher power lead. Failure isn't when things don't go the way you planned. Failure is when you try to carry the weight of life that was never meant to rest on your shoulders. The truth is, some people are not broken. They're just burdened. They're tired because they've been trying to be their own savior, their own provider, their own solution. They wake up with a heavy heart and go to bed with the same questions spinning in their mind, wondering why things aren't changing. But the moment you decide to release control, that's when the impossible begins to happen. Letting go is not losing, it's allowing. It's saying, I trust that there's a direction beyond my understanding. Think about how heavy your mind becomes when you're trying to predict every outcome, control every response, and plan every move. It's exhausting, isn't it? That's not how life was meant to be lived. When you let go, you shift from anxiety to alignment. You stop trying to carry the mountain and start climbing it one step at a time. You stop trying to predict the wind and start setting your sail. That's what real wisdom looks like. Understanding that your life is not sustained by your control, but by your connection to something greater. Have you ever tried to hold on to something too tightly, like water in your hands? The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. That's what control does. When you cling to what you can't manage, you lose what you're supposed to keep. But when you open your hand, when you release the pressure, what's meant for you stays. That's the paradox of life. The moment you stop forcing is the moment things start flowing. You never fail when you release what isn't yours to fix. Some of the most successful people in life didn't win because they had all the answers. They won because they knew when to release control. They understood that there comes a time when logic must bow to faith, when planning must yield to purpose. You can't always strategize your way into destiny. Sometimes you have to surrender into it. When you let go, you allow yourself to be guided, and guidance is far more powerful than guessing. Look at nature for a moment. A tree doesn't panic about the storm. It simply stands deeply rooted, knowing the storm will pass. Birds don't worry about their next meal. They simply fly, trusting that provision is waiting in flight. Everything in creation trusts the rhythm of life. Except us, we worry, we rush, we panic. But when you let go, when you step back and say, I trust the process, life begins to respond differently. The peace you were chasing finally catches up to you. Maybe you've been in a season where everything feels uncertain. The job isn't stable, the relationship feels fragile, the future looks blurry. You keep asking yourself, what do I do now? And every time you try to fix it, it gets messier. That's your sign that it's time to let go. Sometimes the reason things aren't working is because you're still trying to lead where you were meant to follow. You're trying to drive a car that you're supposed to ride in. There's a greater driver who knows the map better than you. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become lazy or indifferent. It means you recognize that your control has limits, but your faith does not. It means you can still work hard while resting internally, knowing that results don't come from stress, they come from alignment. You can hustle without worry. You can dream without fear. You can move without anxiety because you trust that even if you take a wrong turn, the route will be recalculated in your favor. You never fail when you let go, because the moment you surrender, you create space for strength to fill you again. Have you ever noticed how peace returns the moment you stop trying to figure everything out? That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Letting go is choosing peace over panic. It's saying, I may not understand this season, but I believe it's working for my good. When you reach that level of trust, you become unshakable. People around you may panic, but you stay calm because you've learned the secret. Letting go isn't losing control. It's gaining clarity. Think of a kite. It can only rise when it's released. If you hold it too tightly, it won't soar. It needs both tension and release to catch the wind. Life is the same way. You need the courage to release what's keeping you grounded so you can rise. Some of the situations you're trying to fix are actually the weights holding you down. The moment you let go, you rise higher than you ever imagined. You never fail when you let go, because what's meant for you cannot be taken by what's leaving you. You can lose a job and still not lose your purpose. You can walk away from a relationship and still not lose your value. You can face rejection and still not lose your direction. Letting go isn't the end. It's often the beginning of something better. But you'll never know that if you keep clinging to what's already falling apart. People who learn to let go walk differently. They speak differently. They sleep differently. They stop chasing validation because they know who's really in control. They don't waste their energy fighting battles that have already been won. They stop trying to manipulate outcomes because they trust that everything unfolds exactly when it should. When you let go, you start to see patterns, lessons, and timing that you were blind to before. You start to realize that the delays weren't punishments, they were protection. When you stop forcing your way through life, you discover the quiet power of peace. You begin to notice that things align more effortlessly. Opportunities start to meet you halfway. The people who belong in your life stay without you begging them to. The dreams that are meant for you begin to manifest without constant struggle. That's the beauty of letting go. It invites grace where there used to be grind. Letting go doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. It doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful. Because true power is not in control, it's in surrender. It's in knowing that no matter what happens, you are guided, covered, and supported. It's in knowing that what falls away was never meant to stay, and what remains cannot be shaken. That's why you never fail when you let go and let divine guidance take the lead. There comes a time when you've done everything you could. You've prayed, you've worked, you've believed, you've cried, and you realize that the next move isn't yours to make. That's the moment when you have to lift your hands, take a deep breath, and say, I've done my best. Now, you do the rest. Because life isn't just about doing, it's about knowing when to release. There is power in surrender. There is victory in silence. There is greatness in stillness. Sometimes the greatest move you'll ever make is to stop moving and let the divine finish what you started. You've fought hard. You've held on. You've carried the weight for far too long. But the truth is, you were never meant to carry it forever. You were meant to learn from it, grow from it, and then hand it over. There's something magical that happens when you finally release what's been draining you. Your peace comes back, your clarity returns, and suddenly everything starts to make sense. Because what you release in faith always returns multiplied in strength. There is a point in every story where the hero doesn't need to fight harder. They need to trust deeper. That's where you are right now. You're not losing. You're transitioning. You're not defeated. You're being refined. You're not at the end. You're at the edge of something new. Sometimes the darkness you're walking through is not the end of the road. It's the tunnel leading to a brighter light. You've done your best. Now it's time to watch divine power do what you couldn't. The world teaches you that strength is about control, about doing everything yourself. But real strength is in knowing when to step back. Real strength is when you can say, even if I don't understand, I still believe something good is being built behind the scenes. Real strength is standing still in the storm and saying, I refuse to panic. I trust the process. That's where miracles are born, in the calm after surrender. You see, faith doesn't mean you'll always have answers. It means you'll always have assurance. Assurance that no matter what happens, you're being guided towards something greater. Life isn't against you. It's shaping you. The storm isn't sent to destroy you. It's sent to prepare you. The delay isn't punishment. It's protection. When you finally realize that everything is connected, that even your pain has purpose, that's when you stop questioning and start flowing. There's a reason you had to go through what you did. There's a reason certain people walked away. There's a reason some doors closed. Because not every loss is a tragedy. Some losses are transitions. Sometimes the divine removes what you thought you needed just to give you what you truly deserve. So don't cry over closed doors. Celebrate them. Every closed door means you're being redirected to something better. You may be tired, but you're not finished. You may be stretched, but you're not broken. You may be waiting, but you're not forgotten. The best part of your story hasn't even been written yet. What's coming next will make sense of everything you've endured. All the sleepless nights, all the tears, all the confusion, it will all come together and you'll realize it was never falling apart, it was falling into place. So lift your head, straighten your back, take a deep breath. You've done your best. You've fought with courage. You've shown up when others would have given up. Now it's time to rest in faith. Let the divine show up and do what only the divine can do. Because the same force that carried you through the fire will now crown you with favor. The same hands that held you in the storm will now place you in your destiny. The same silence that scared you is now the space where your miracle is forming. You've come too far to turn back now. This isn't where you fall, it's where you rise. This isn't where you lose, it's where you're launched. This isn't the end, it's the beginning of something unexplainably beautiful. You've done your best, and now the universe, heaven, destiny, whatever you believe, is about to respond with power. And when it happens, when everything finally falls into place, you'll look back and realize it was never failure. It was formation. It was never punishment, it was preparation. It was never delay, it was direction. Every tear was watering the garden of your breakthrough. Every setback was setting up your comeback. Every waiting season was building a version of you that could handle the blessing when it arrived. So take this moment right here, right now, and let go of the fear. Let go of the timeline. Let go of the pressure to fix everything. You've done your best. Now watch the divine do the rest. Because when you step aside, the miraculous steps in. And when the miraculous steps in, everything that once seemed impossible suddenly becomes inevitable.